Hi, all. I'm Rachel Phillips-Buck, and I'm joined today by Viva Gore, who is the Director of Retention Intelligence at Ferris Resources. She's been working really hard to understand what the data is telling us about students' experiences as we're looking at that student impact survey that so many students filled out over the last couple of months. Today, we're going to be talking about the specific ways that students are asking to be supported. First, I want to talk a little bit about context. Remember, when we're talking about retention, we're talking about increases of 2 or 3%, decreases of 2 or 3%, and that can make a significant impact on financial health of an institution. Every student is really important when it comes to that retention number. And so, Viva, can we start with just context about the numbers we're going to be talking about and why they're really important to understand?
Yeah. So for each kind of key area that we're going to go through, I'm going to be talking about the percentage of students that ask for this kind of support. And I think it's just important to know that that's just the percentage of students that actually articulated it out of all students that responded to the survey. And as an example, some students might not think to ask for things that they actually need. So a lot of students said that they felt really overwhelmed with the amount of work that they're receiving when they're asked what the hardest thing is, but when they were asked how the university can support them, a lot less students actually asked for that.
Absolutely. So this is like a kind of an outspoken representation of students who are like, I'm going to tell you what I need from you. And we would assume that there's a whole bunch of students who it wouldn't occur to them to ask for what they need, but they're being represented by this other group. Awesome. So tell me, what is the first thing that you found students were asking for in terms of support?
The first area was around financial support. This was mentioned by roughly 12% of students who answered the survey. And there are a couple of different types of support that students were asking for within this theme, but across the different types of asks, there's this undercurrent of students just mentioning the financial difficulties that they or their families facing. And we also found that if they had income concerns or food concerns, they were much more likely to say that they wanted some sort of support financially. So this is like an ask that is coming out of a real place of need for students.
Absolutely. So we saw so many students telling us, it's a struggle for me to pay for college anyway. Now I'm at home and I don't have my job anymore, or my parents have lost their job. And so there really is a longing for some sort of support in terms of financial. And I don't think that schools are all going to solve that in the same way. I think what students need to hear is, hey, we see you, we're concerned about this, we're working to provide some kind of financial support for you. And just the voice of an institution saying, we're on your side and we want to fix this, we empathize with how difficult this is, will increase student loyalty and also provide them some real relief from this financial need that they have. Okay, what else?
The next area that students wanted support in was just having regular contact with their university. This was mentioned again by another 12% of students. A lot of it was students just asking for updates from the university and to be informed. And this was often in a positive way of students saying, you're already doing this, please just keep doing this. It's really helping.
That's great.
Yeah.
It really speaks to the hunger for community, right? They want to be close. They want to hear from the people that they care about. They want to have those messages of, we're going to be back together again. I also really like the idea that keeps your students close to you. What we're doing this summer is going to impact the retention numbers in the fall. And so students just need to hear that you're missing them and that you are excited to be back together again.
And that, comes to students asking specifically as well for people to reach out and check in on them and just send them words of encouragement, motivation, and to just be there for them if they want to ask for support themselves.
And let's not forget that students are not going to respond to those messages. So for practitioners, we can feel like we're sending all these encouraging messages and it's going into a black hole. But what this reflects is that that's really meaningful to them, even if they're not saying, thank you so much, I needed this today. So I think that's really good insight. Okay, what's next on the list?
Next was students asking for some sort of change to the grading system on their campus for this time. This was mentioned by around 8% of students. This was a lot of students asking to move towards a pass-fail system, or in some cases, universities had already moved to that system, but they were saying they really wanted it to be applied to all of their classes. And in some cases, students were just asking for professors to be a lot more lenient in the way that they were grading students. Um, Overall, it's just students kind of facing a lot of other issues and finding it hard to transition online and really worrying about how this is going to impact their grades and their GPA.
So that's really interesting, right? Because we would say in the spring, nobody was doing their best work. Students are saying, I know that I wasn't doing my best work. Also, though, faculty, you weren't doing your best work either. Some of you have not taught online before. We were trying to figure it out. I've seen a lot of schools solve this in different ways. So some schools have done pass fail for one class. Some of them have done it for every class. We've seen schools that have had no, who've kind of made a policy that there will be no negative effect on a student's GPA for that semester. If their GPA is positively affected by the work that they did, then that's great, and we'll appreciate that, but there won't be a negative GPA impact. We also had schools that said, you know, we're just putting an asterisk by those grades and saying that was a COVID semester and we weren't doing our best work, and so we're going to give them some leniency. So I think there are creative ways to solve that. It's really good to know that students are saying, please show us grace. We weren't doing our best work there. Okay, and what's our last way to support our students?
We have two more ways.
Oh, two more ways. Okay,
Yeah.
what's the next one?
So this one relates to what you were just saying. Students, one of the asks was just that professors be understanding, accommodating, and flexible. This was around 8% of students again. There are a few different areas that they just wanted professors to understand about their lives right now. One was just that this transition was difficult and that some students are just going to find it hard to learn online. Another was that there's just a range of experiences that students will face when they're having to move off campus and move home or find somewhere else to live. So they're having a lot of other stress areas in their life on top of this academic stress, and they just want people to be flexible with them. And also just that some students might not have direct access to a computer or stable internet connection, so they might not be able to meet deadlines or come to all of the classes, and they just want people to be flexible when those things arise and to not penalize them for it.
So I really appreciate this one, because I think what students are asking for is for someone to hear their voice and to tell other people, hey, this is what students are going through. I don't know how faculty would know. We've talked about students who have to drive 20 miles to get internet. We've talked about students who are doing their term paper on their phone because they literally don't have a computer, or students whose speakers don't work on their computers so they can't join Zoom classes. I don't know how people would know those things, except that we've asked students and they've told us, and now we're telling you to go to your campus and to be a voice for what those students are experiencing, and to say to faculty, hey, they just want you to be understanding and be flexible and have some idea of the hardship that students are going through that you couldn't even imagine. So I really love that. Be the voice of a student, be understanding. Okay, and is this our last one?
Yes, this is our last one.
What is it?
Students asking for their workload to be reduced. So not super surprising, because it's a key area that they found hard about moving to online classes. It was mentioned by around 5% of students explicitly, but if you combine it with the number of students who also just said that they had too much work, that's 14%. And for students with food concerns, it was up to 19% were asking for this.
Wow.
So it relates back to our point, I think.
Yeah, that's really interesting to me, because it speaks to Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? Like if you don't have enough food, of course you're feeling overwhelmed, and there's a lot of other things that are really difficult for you. I think we have to just chalk this one up to not our best work in the spring. I think, faculty didn't know how to teach online classes, students didn't know how to take them. A lot of work was piled on. I think that we can take that and we can fix it for the fall. So we have a lot of suggestions about how to do online classes better for this population of students. But I think as we're considering the work we're doing this summer to support students to think about their financial needs and they're feeling overwhelmed and having too much work and that they just weren't doing their best work. Remember, what you do this summer to connect with those students is going to impact what happens in the fall with your retention rates. And I would say just in general, we should all adopt this attitude of let's be understanding about what's going on with each other. Viva, thank you so much for spending time with us. I really appreciate it. Have a good day, you guys.